like and subscribe. How do you differentiate whether your doubts in your relationships come from your insecurities or whether they come from the other person's actions? If I have a problem or some insecurity pops in my head, I sleep on it. Then if I feel the same way, I simply communicate it to my BF, and we find out what it's stemming from. Either he is acting a certain way and apologizes, and doesn't do it anymore. Or it's just in my head, and he is understanding, and it makes me feel better. Most relationship problems can be solved with simply talking to yourself. Unless it's an abusive or toxic relationship. A whole lot of thinking, which is difficult in itself, especially for people who tend to go to fatalistic leaps and bounds with it. The sad part about insecurities though, is that a lot of it is externally driven. You get insecure within the relationship, because either that person has done crap to you, or you still carry the pain from whatever person of the past had done to you. Find out whether the doubt is based on actual evidence like your partner's behavior, comments, body language that can be clearly attributed to the doubt. Or if it is just an inkling/feeling, it may not be true. Lol, I know I often make up a narrative, based on my reading of my partner's actions and work myself into a doozy for nothing. Married over a decade heterosexual male here, I ended up asking for marriage counseling, because my wife was reading into my body language and was not verbalizing her concerns regarding her reading my body language and my shortness. Turns out I had a torn labrum in my shoulder and I did not want her to worry about me being in pain. She got defensive about things, and started fights, because of her insecurities. I did not get it, but I was also unenthusiastic towards her, or life in general. It is not always about you. It can snowball, if you do not talk about things in a healthy way. Seriously, my shoulder hurt for 3 years, and it damaged my relationship. I guess you should have told her though. She knew you were hiding something, she knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what, so she made assumptions, maybe pessimistic ones, but if you had told her. I think part of being a couple is being open enough to share pain and accept help. She might have been worried, but that might mean she would also want to help you. Women can tell if you are in pain, and hiding it is like a naturally instinct vertical bar. The fact you were hiding it from her was faulty on your part as it diminishes the trust you have with her. That is not her fault, you should have told her. Speaking as someone who wasn't raised to understand or express their emotions, and with a poor memory due to years of stress and insomnia, I found ways to be better at discerning feelings to do with relationships. I write down what that person did and how it made me feel while we were spending time together, as soon as I can get to it, so that I don't forget later and start to second guess my feelings, because I no longer remember what caused them. I also try to be self-aware while we are spending time together and identify my feelings as they happen. For example, someone I was hanging out with cut in line in front of me, and it was a small thing, but it made me feel really annoyed. I took a mental note, and then realized this person was doing little rude things like that all the time. If I hadn't stopped for a minute to notice, I'd have felt negatively about them, but unconsciously. And would have begun to doubt my negative feelings, since I wouldn't have been able to identify the cause. I also try to be equally self-aware when alone, and check up on my feelings, so it becomes a habit, to be more aware generally of how I react to things. Just sit in silence for a minute several times a day, notice how I feel, and think of reasons why. For example, I'm sad right now. Oh, well, I've done a lot today, and I'm pretty tired. And I read something on the news that bothers me. Makes sense I feel this way. If you take time to understand your feelings and thoughts, you'll pinpoint where the uncertainty is coming from, and then you're in a better place to make decisions. All that said, if still unsure, try to take some space and maybe chat to someone you trust about it. Then take some more space. And just think about it. As someone who also suffers from a poor memory, it is imperative to write things down. I have been absolutely gaslit before but then questioned, even if I was, because my memory was so bad. When I started writing things down, and going back to them, I realized my partner was actually being kind of tight to me. I'd say it as easy. Have you ever had those kinds of doubts before this relationship? In the previous relationship? Do those insecurities manifest in a different way when you're single? I guess I haven't. In my last relationship, my insecurities had less to do with the person I was seeing. They were just things I struggled with prior to that for the most part. Right now my issue with my partner is that he was extremely affectionate at first and showed so much love in little ways, but now I constantly question whether he actually loves me or not. His tone isn't as soft anymore. He doesn't show affection the same way anymore. I had no doubts before, but as more time passes, I do. I ask advice from my best friend. She is the least jealous and the most trustful people I know, so if she tells me something's wrong, then I know it's not me. I, 29F, have become a very anxious person in the last couple of years. So much so that it often clouds my judgments. I started dating this great guy while I was working on my anxiety issues. I have had so many insecurities in the first 6 months of the relationship. Through introspection and therapy I realized that a lot of my insecurities were through peer pressure or because of a certain idea of perfect life I had. All my freelance projects ended, and I was left with no work during the pandemic. I was too caught up in my own idea of how my life should look like, and because of that I started putting too much pressure on myself, thinking he would somehow be able to fix my anxiety or insecurities. And that pressure and my anxieties made me think that he is not adequate enough for me. Which was not true at all. Soon the cloud of insecurities started to clear. And I began to see my BF for who he really is. And I was wrong on putting that much pressure on him. He stood through the storm with me with all the patience and love. I'm so glad I have him. I still have doubts, of course. And we communicate through them. Therapy helped in my case. I try to get a second opinion from someone I trust. Who might you ask? I don't have many good friends. My best friend is my cousin, but I'm not that would be helpful, because in the past my insecurities have shown through, and she's basically been positive like, hey, if he's not treating you so well, these go away, you should leave. She's only been in one relationship as well, has married her high school sweetheart. Most of my siblings are younger, and my immediate family in general doesn't like him much, because he's never around. COVID, family wasn't great at social distancing, or differences in politics/opinion. My dad is very conservative and judges guys' manliness, which leads to him saying snide things about such things like, my boyfriend will get a pedicure with his sister. My boyfriend doesn't care if the massage therapist is male. My boyfriend doesn't squeeze your hand to death in a handshake to prove his strength. I tried talking to a therapist, but they said a lot of trust yourself. Okay, thank you. The problem is I don't right now, in reference to this situation. The biggest thing I got from my therapy is that your feelings are valid, regardless of whether they are coming from past insecurities or not. This means that your partner should listen and try and make adjustments to assuage these insecurities/feelings. If they can't, or they won't, it's up to you to then decide whether it's something you can live with and move past without it constantly lingering and affecting your, or in fact their, mood, or whether you need someone who meets your need of having these insecurities/feelings assuaged. At that point you'll discover it's a must-have from your partner, in the same way that some people have must-haves of good sense of humor, good with kids, etc. At the end of the day, only you can know. I think for me, it comes from experience. I'm someone who writes in a journal too, so I can see over time what's upset me, and notice a pattern. If it's a first relationship it's hard to know for sure, but as you get a bit older, and start to reflect back on past relationships, and compare different experiences, it becomes more clear. I think self-reflection and self-awareness in general are absolutely necessary, in order to be able to differentiate like this. And it's a lifelong process. I will not say I was able to differentiate at the time, but when me and my boyfriend were first together, I was having doubts about us. I'd worry and think we were not compatible, or that I secretly did not love him. At the time my family were really unsupportive of my relationship and tried to convince me that he was not the one and that he was this and that. One night I was very emotional and a lot came over me and I told my boyfriend that we should break up, hoping he would say no, don't be silly, and instead he agreed. Instantly my heart went in my stomach and I felt sick, my legs were shaking. At that moment all my doubts went away because I knew I wanted to be with him and that I love him. Years later now, I feel so much more confident in my relationship and everyone else around me has stopped being unsupportive. I have realized that it was other people's opinions around me that caused me to doubt my relationship. It was not from my own insecurities. Also, I had a lot of unresolved issues at the time and I would feel sad when my boyfriend would leave to go to his house. I never understood why I was so excessively sad about it. I thought it was maybe because I did not love him deep down, so I was feeling guilty maybe. It turns out I have anxiety stemming from a traumatic event that has led me to feel emotionally unsupported by my family, and every time he went away, I was getting upset because subconsciously I was associating it with not having any support, because I associate my boyfriend with support. If you are unsure now, in time you'll realize whether feel your own insecurities or they come from external factors. Hi, I have an unsupportive family in my current relationship, and I know it affects my feelings. Although I know their reasons for disliking him are bad, there's still a hint of could they be right. That same thing happened with my BF and I, where I expressed doubts about our relationship, and he was like, yeah, me too, there's a lot of problems we have. Of course it led to the stomach dropping sinking feeling, but unfortunately all my doubts didn't go away. I guess I had been hoping that he was more sure and that would bolster my confidence in our relationship. We've worked on various things since then, and have gotten better at some, had some setbacks in others, but are still chugging along. Any advice? My, probably stupid, head keeps wondering if any of my insecurities would go away if we took the next step and moved in together, because that would be something I could look to and be like, see, we are committed, as well as be a way to entwine our lives a little more closely and bring that close down time I crave. But on the other hand, everyone says that moving in doesn't fix problems. I eat something, sleep on it, and think about where I feel it might stem from. If it is a me problem, I deal with it myself. If it is actually an us problem, I try my best to figure out what the problem is, and what would make me feel better, then have a conversation about it. Usually I feel like it is a me problem, and get over it myself. From my experience, if it is an insecurity, then you will have had the exact same thought/doubt in every relationship you have had, even if it was not always true. Also, if it is just an insecurity and you bring it up with your partner, they should reassure you that whatever doubt you are having is not true and work to make sure you see that. If it is being brought up, and the issue continued anyway, then it is probably a real problem, and not just your own thoughts. I'll try to give an example. I used to have a boyfriend who would flirt with other women in front of me. I was not sure if I was being ridiculous or not, so I brought it up to him. He apologized and said that I was not crazy, he just enjoyed flirting and it never actually meant anything. But he realized that his behavior was affecting me, that it was not right since we were in an exclusive relationship, and said he would not do it anymore. He stuck to his word and never did it again. Now if he had reacted in any other way, I am not flirting, I am just being friendly, you're overthinking it, she flirted with me first, I did not want to be rude or anything like that, then it is a real problem and needs to be dealt with. Most likely by dumping them, because that kind of behavior means they are not respecting your boundaries. I've totally been there with my recent ex and my conclusion was that it was the other person's actions, so I broke it off. Some things that helped me get out of this is it me, him, or us loop. I made lists. Seriously. For example, I made a list of house chores to see if I really was doing significantly more, or if it just felt that way. I also made a list of things I did and didn't like about him to see how many of them were really about him, and how many were our specific dynamic / my own insecurities. Seeing things in this kind of almost brutally honest visual blunt way can be pretty helpful. I looked inwards. I realized I didn't like who I was around him, and asked myself why. I realized his negative attitude and irritability were rubbing off on me and draining me, and that I can distinctly recall myself being a calmer person before that point. People are deeply affected by their close relationships, so this makes sense, kind of like an emotional sponge. I looked at my own actions from the other person's path, based on what they'd told me. I realized that not only did he rarely have anything to say that I was doing wrong, the things he did point out as negatives were either none of his business or just plain wrong. I have no issues apologizing, but in this case, I realized it really wasn't me for the most part. I named what was bothering me and observed if I'd communicated that to the other person clearly, more than once. Now, I was enabling him to an extent by not enforcing the boundaries I'd communicated to him as strictly as I could have, but I also realized I didn't want to be around someone who needed to be constantly reminded of these boundaries and needs these reminders to make even the slightest, more temporary bit of effort. If you feel like a broken record yet nothing changes, ask yourself why. I observed the other person's reactions to things that have nothing to do with you. My ex would complain constantly about literally anything in his life, and I realized this nitpicking and paranoid thinking were affecting US too. Since I could clearly see he was exaggerating when it came to those other things, I could apply it to myself and the relationship. I looked for patterns. It's possible that you're creating toxic dynamics in your relationship. For me, I realized I tend to take on a caretaking role and let people unload on me at my own expense. I'm now working on breaking that pattern, but now I know to be mindful of this pattern and I actively try to prevent it. I talk to other people about how I felt. Give specific concrete examples, and make a concerted effort not to make yourself look better. You need trusted loved ones for this part, or a professional, who aren't too close with the other person. Their perspectives showed me my interpretation was logical. I hope you figure things out. You know, I'm still trying to figure that auto vertical bar. I struggle with this too. My general approach is, how would I react if a friend asked me for help regarding said jealousy? Would I tell her she's being insecure, or that her jealousy is a valid cause of concern? For some reason, I'm more level-headed when it comes to other people's problems than my own. I think a lot of us are like that. Another thing I do is I think of the most emotionally mature person I know. I imagine them in my position. Would have a problem with this? It helps put things in perspective. Introspection, communication, and talking about it with friends or family if it's really heavy. Quite often I know that those thoughts are my insecurities, because my BF then proves me wrong by simply existing. It's a constant observation of each other's behavior and actions. If there is something odd, you will soon notice it, and have your proof for your worries. If I can't find it out like this, I simply ask him to talk with me in a completely relaxed moment, and without any accusations or doubts, just pure honesty. That works best when you talk about your thoughts and doubts. E.g. I feel like you've been behaving more distant lately. Is it just my interpretation, or is there something you want to talk about? Do not ever tell your partner what he did wrong. Totally a mood killer, and all the doubts of your side feel like an offense. E.g. You just look for yourself, and do not ever care about me. You are so egoistic. Don't do that. Ladies, I can definitely tell the difference. I know I have insecurities, and sometimes that manifests as making assumptions about what the other person's intentions are. I still want the relationship, I am just insecure that they don't it. Then when the person's actions are appalling to say the least, it causes me to not want to be in the relationship anymore, as I am put off. Therapy. It's always better to talk it up to professionals. It depends a lot on the other person. In my previous relationship, I thought I was going crazy. He was constantly lying about things, like saying he was going to the store to get milk, then coming back hours later without milk and clearly on drugs of some kind. If I asked him where he went, he would become enraged and call me crazy for asking. He would also flirt with girls on social media, and if I just innocently asked how he knew them, he would become immediately enraged and call me psycho and wouldn't answer my question, which made me feel even more like he was hiding something. He was constantly gaslighting me and making me feel like I was the problem. None of this happens in my current relationship. My husband is honest, dependable, and honestly I think he is incapable of flirting, or even understanding, when a girl is flirting with him. I completely trust him around other women, and if I do have a jealous moment, I remind myself of the kind of person he is, and I know it's just in my head. I'm only speaking from my own personal experience, so take this with a whole bunch of salt, but I've had previous relationships where I've asked myself that same question, and the answer has always been I should have left. I have a history of being with quite mentally abusive negligent partners who lover bombed me at the beginning of a relationship and then just left me breadcrumbs while actively trying to make me jealous or insecure. The problem I always ran into was, who can I trust to give me a solid yes or no answer? I couldn't trust my own judgment. I couldn't talk about it to my partner because it would end up in an argument. I couldn't talk to my family because they would always say, what do you think you should do? As if that helped. And I couldn't talk to friends because none of them could see behind the scenes of the relationship. What I know now looking back, I should have left and been on my own for a bit while I worked on my insecurities. I was very codependent and insecure, and then when I felt healthy enough, looked for a relationship because I wanted one, and not because I thought I needed someone with me. Fabulous question. I guess by thinking on things rather than reacting in the moment. I also think it is important when upset or angry or down to look at other things that might be making you see the other person in a harsher light. Being sleep deprived / overtired. Having a bad day at work. Being hungry. If you have doubts, even if they are caused by insecurities, then you need to take them seriously. I had doubts in my last relationship, and I kept a note in my phone, like a tab to write, if I felt that way every day, or just on occasion. For me it was every day. I left and met the love of my life 3 months later, and I have never had a doubt with him. I'm going to be 100% real right now. I had really bad memories from past relationships that led to huge insecurity issues. I'm currently seeking therapy for this among a plethora of reasons, but I think it has been the lead contender in helping those insecure feelings. My therapist has really helped me figure out where my internal doubts are coming from, and together we've come up with ways for me to be more communicative with my partner when I'm feeling this way. Doubts come from actions or a lack thereof, so communication is key. Since I've learned to voice my concerns and needs in the relationship, it has never been better. I am 37F, divorced, and now in a live-in partnership. After my divorce, I casually dated a lot of different guys. During that time, I learned that I had an anxious attachment style, and that I was drawn to men with avoidant attachment styles. I have now been with my boyfriend for over a year. He has a secure attachment style, and I now have what is called an insecure style. On most days, we are very happy, giggling together, eating lunch and dinner together, hosting friends at the house I bought, and we live together in, and raucously watching TV together. But I still have doubts fairly often. Does he take care of his health proactively enough? Is he too nerdy for us to be compatible long term? Will he really ever fully understand my challenges as a black woman? What if I want to travel 3 times as much as him when the world opens, so if it ever does? Many times, I discuss these anxieties with my therapist, journal about them, let the anxious thought go, or raise it to him, so we can talk about it. What I do know is that this is undoubtedly the healthiest and happiest romantic and sexual relationship I have ever had. He is the person I want to learn about love with. Here are the things that help me differentiate between my own insecurities and anxieties versus my partner's actions and qualities. Therapy. Lots of therapy. I went 2 years every week. If you have health insurance, it is likely covered to where your payment could be far less than sticker price. Call the number on the back of your insurance card and ask about your mental health benefits. Reading the book attached, it blew my eyes wide open and helped me realize I often felt insecure in relationships because of my formative years and because I was pursuing men who wanted distance the more close we got. I resisted reading the book for a year after my therapist recommended it, and I wish I had read it even sooner. Taking Cheryl Paula's relationship anxiety self-paced course, and then the live course. I found her website during a frantic night of Googling, gobbled up some blog posts, and decided to take the course. Reading about so many other PR planners' experiences was so validating and reassuring. I am still working through the exercises. I still struggle with anxiety and doubts, and I do think most, if not all of them, are rooted in my insecurities and fantasies of a partner and life that would be Instagram perfect and make me feel great at grad school reunions. It is embarrassing to say it like that, I don't even use SIG. But I am trying to convey the peer pressure and external validation nature of a lot of my insecurities. I hope this helps. It's him. What I have learnt after one bad, one good and one great relationship is that it should be easy. If it's stressful, everything is a struggle to communicate about, and they don't listen/change their behavior simply cause they don't want to accept your side of it, then leave. I take a step back and say to myself, do I normally behave/think this way outside of the relationship? And if the answer is yes, I know it is something I need to work on internally. If it is no, then I look at the other person's actions. Simple, but it works for me. Identify where the insecurity stems from. By asking certain questions. I find that, even though a person may say no to something, their body is saying yes, and you can often pick up on that. Therapy. I have a lot of insecurities, because I have had a lot of bad relationships in the past. Currently I am seeing someone and he is great. He has not given me any cause to doubt his feelings for me, but still occasionally I feel insecurity creeping in after so many bad experiences. I talk to my therapist about it, and in the therapy sessions I can clearly see that any worries are unfounded. Break it right down in your head, and ask yourself for evidence that you are not making it up. If I have an insecure thought, I'll ask myself why. Over and over until I come up with a solution. You have to figure out what kind of relationship you have. If it is toxic, then the same problems present with no solution despite talking about it. If it is a wholesome relationship, then both parties are interested in making changes that better communication and deepen the bond. Where is yours at? I am lucky to be in a relationship where I don't have a lot of insecurities. 13 years ago, when we first started dating, my husband was a bartender with girls fawning over him. I was never jealous though, because he never gave them the time of day. I always knew that, if I were to feel jealous at any point, it was because he would be doing something different, and that would be a red flag to watch out for. It is very difficult to differentiate between your insecurities and the behaviors of others. The reason it is complicated is that we expect behaviors from our loved ones that can be sent received as loving or hurtful. For an example, if I expect words of affirmation from my husband and he falls short, I could fail to bond with him. I could be angry with him. I could be insecure in our relationship, and he could be completely defenseless and blameless. However, I can be insecure and have jealousies completely unwarranted over my husband's coworker. This would be on me, but I could have jealousy and insecurities, and my husband could be having an inappropriate relationship with a coworker. My advice is to focus on you. Insecurities come from needs not being met over an extended period of time. For an example, jealousy happens when an individual grows up within a family that is overly competitive and plays favorites. In order to be confident, children need unconditional love. Competition is fine, as long as it is not destructive. Comparing children to others, especially siblings, is a recipe for disaster. Take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and determine what needs have been ignored, and find healthy ways to satisfy your needs. As for the behavior of others, trust your gut. It is almost always right. I have several questions I ask myself. 1. Is it a voice in my head telling me things that others have told me about myself, wearing down my self-esteem? Or is it my gut saying something I know it right? 2. If it is my gut making me feel unsafe, are there any behaviors, no matter how small, that triggered it? I then replay things and pay attention. It could be that they have similar mannerisms to people who made me feel unsafe and the facial movements are not their fault. Or it could be that they are repeating things others have said to beat me down in the past, or small things that make me think they are hiding things from me. My husband knows I was cheated on and as such treats secrets differently. My ex would hide things, and if I got suspicious would send me flowers and chocolates to my work and escort me home etc, which I found out was him being guilty after weird behavior that turned out to be cheating. My husband will say, "Dominant, go into that drawer. I have got a surprise in there for you." Or if I need to get an address out of his phone whilst driving, will ask be not read a conversation with someone, because it is about my birthday. I have never read, or asked to read his messages. Usually, if I tune into my gut, it is rarely wrong, and the times I ignored it I regret. Ask yourself what advice you would give to a friend in the same situation. My answer is talk about it. People with social anxiety especially. Talk it out, let the person know how you feel. And let the person know you got a bit of a hard time with insecurities. May seem like a hard thing to do, but when it's done, you'll feel great that you talked about it. You've been visited by the ghost of a very important man. Pay your respects by liking and subscribing, and he'll grant you 3 weeks of good luck.